Welcome to my class. In this particular session, we will talk about types of relationships in database management systems. Types of relationships. Between the different entities in database, there are three types of relationships. The first one is one-to-one relationship. Second is one-to-many relationship. And the third one is many-to-many relationship. Let us discuss the three relationships one by one. One-to-one relationship. One-to-one relationship between two entities means that one record of entity 1 can have an association with only one record of entity 2. One-to-one relationship is represented as 1-to-1, 1:1. Look at the example. This is example number 1. Consider the case of a college. For every department like commerce, there can only be one department head. So we have one entity as department head. This is entity 1. There is another entity that is department, and this is entity 2. We need to create a relationship between these two entities. Department head controls department, but only one department head controls one department. This is a case of one-to-one relationship. There can be only one department head which controls one department. So it's a case of one-to-one relationship. Let's talk about another example. This is example 2. Consider the case of husband and wife in a family. Husband is entity 1 and wife is entity 2. We need to create a relationship between these two. We name this relationship as marries. Husband marries wife. Again, this is a relationship of 1-to-1. One husband can have only one wife. Look at in this particular table. There is one particular table termed as husband table and the second table is wife table. There are two tables on this particular screen. One is husband table and the second is wife table. We have husband ID, husband name, husband age, husband address and the date of marriage. Similarly, in the wife table we have wife ID number, wife name, wife age, wife maiden name and the wife maiden address. In this particular case you can see that we can create a relationship of only one husband with one wife. It means one record of this particular table can be connected to one record of the second table. One record of the husband table can be connected to one record of the wife table. How we can do that? Let's take up the case of H2, husband ID number, and the name is Vipin Gupta. Let's take up the case of W2, that is Sonali Gupta. Now we have one more particular field in the husband table, and in the husband table we find that in the record S2 there is a field W2. It means this particular record can be connected only to one particular record of wife table, and that is W2. Husband 2 is married to W2. Husband 2 cannot be connected to any other record of wife table. So again, this is a case of one-to-one relationship. Second, one-to-many relationship. One-to-many relationship between two entities means that one record of entity 1 can have an association with more than one record of entity 2. One-to-many relationship is represented as 1 colon n. Let us look at the example. Consider the case of a college where one department, for example commerce department, it has many teachers, but a teacher is not related to many departments. So one entity is department, entity 1, second entity is teacher, that is entity 2. We need to create a relationship between these two entities. We name this relationship as has, and we create the relationship. One department has many teachers. So now this becomes a case of one-to-many relationship. Look at these two tables. One table is department table and the second table is teacher table. In the department table we have department IDs, department name, we have year of establishment, number of teachers and head of department. In the teachers table we have teachers ID, we have teachers name, their qualification, their specialization and their experience in years. In this particular case, there can be number of teachers in one particular department. Let us take up the case of commerce department, whose head of department is Mahesh Madan. We find that there are 3 teachers who are in commerce department. We introduce one more particular column in the teacher table which represents different departments. D1 is commerce. The first person, the first teacher, the third teacher and the fifth teacher, they all are in the same department, that is commerce department. Commerce department is one, but it has 3 different teachers. So this becomes a relationship of one to many. Though there is one department, but in one department there are 3 teachers. So it's a case of one to many. Let us look at another example. We have a book. The attribute of the book is book ID, title. These are the different attributes: author, subject, publisher. If there is a book, then there has to be a title, there must be some of author, there must be some subject and there must be a publisher. These are the attributes of entity book. There is another entity called chapter. We have a chapter ID, that is chapter number. We have chapter title. It is true that every chapter must be having some chapter number and some chapter title. So these are the 2 attributes of entity chapter. Now let's create a relationship between these 2. We created a relationship between these 2 entities. A book has number of chapters. Chapters cannot have more than one book. So book contains number of chapters. It becomes a case of one-to-many relationship. Let us move on to the third point, that is many-to-many relationship. Many-to-many relationship between the 2 entities are said to exist if every record in the entity 1 can have association with any number of records of entity 2. This is represented by M colon N, many to many. Let's take up an example. Consider the case of students where many students study many courses. We have one particular entity student. This is entity 1. The course is entity 2. We can create a relationship between these 2 entities and we name this relationship as studies. We created this relationship and we can say that student studies courses. There are many students who study many courses. So this is a case of many to many. Here you can see two tables. One is student table and the second is course table. In the student table we have student ID, student name and student address. In the course table we have student ID, we have course ID and we have course name, duration and fees. You can find that student ID is in the course table. Student 101 is pursuing BCom Honors. Student 101 is pursuing CA Foundation. He is pursuing two courses. Similarly, we can find that student 105 is pursuing BCom program course. Student 105 is pursuing C++ computer course. And student 105 is pursuing the third course, that is company secretaryship. You can see that 101 is pursuing two courses and 105 is pursuing three courses. It's a case of many-to-many relationship. Many students are pursuing many courses. Thank you very much.